I find it hard to believe that 70 years have passed since I, as an 11-year-old wee boy, stood in the terracing at the Mount Florida end to witness what was to become the outstanding football memory of my life. And it's not as if that was the only memory I ever had. I went to Wembley in 1963 to see Scotland, who played most of that match with 10 men, beat England. And I was also here in 1977 to see Kilbirnie Ladeside's great triumph over Kirkintilloch Rob Roy. However, gentlemen, even these two memorable occasions cannot compare with that momentous day in May 1952. Over many years, Kilbirnie Ladeside supporters had watched as other Ayrshire clubs had got to the final. Auchinleck Talbot, co-winning Rangers twice, Salkits Victoria, Cumnock Juniors. And often winner, when will your turn come? On the 8th of September 1951, Kilbirnie took the first step in the long road that they hoped would lead them to Hampden. They beat Largs, they beat Yoker, and the third round they drew Cumberslang Rangers away from home. Now at that time, Cumberslang Rangers were one of the leading clubs in the Central League and were one of the favourites for the Scottish Junior Cup. But Ladeside overturned the odds by beating them 3-2. And the hero of Ladeside that day was goalkeeper Jimmy Bishop, who was standing in for Tam McQueen, who was in army service. Now, the fourth round provided a gate of 7,000, a record at the Vale Park, and watched Ladeside destroy Auchinleck 5-1. Mind ye, the Talbot weren't the force then that are new. The fifth round was just o'er the hull to Dorrye. Dorrye at that time had ambitions of a cup round day, but that was soon washed away with a 4-0 victory. I remember I was at that game that day, and there was a minute's silence for the late King. That was in February. The King had died in November, and there wasn't a murmur out of that crowd of 6,000. Did you get that new? That did it. That took us into the quarter-final draw, which again was a difficult one, at Anbank United. The South Ayrshire teams, as you boys ken, were notoriously difficult to beat in their own ground, and they weren't too keen on the finer points of the game. There was 10,000 at that game. There would hardly be 3,000 folk in the whole Anbank. 10,000 folk. We beat them 2-1 and qualified for the semi-final. Now this was the Ladeside's third appearance in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup. In season 1911 and 1912 and 1912-13, losing on both occasions, first to Petershall and secondly to Inverkeithing, who both went on to win the cup. That's how near Ladeside were at it. On Saturday 12th April 1952, in front of 25,000 folk, Kilbirnie Ladeside and Lugar played out a draw in the first game, and the hero that day was Tam McQueen. The replay, the following Wednesday, but the Wednesday again, Ladeside beat Lugar 4-2, which qualified them for the final of the Scottish for the first time. As I filtered out of Rugby Park that night, the question in every Ladeside supporter's lips was, who do we get in the final? And the answer was Camelin, or if you come from there, it's Camelin. Now, a lot of folk in Kilbirnie didn't ken where Camelin was, but the general opinion was that it was somewhere the other side of Glasgow. However, the better informed among the population were quick to point out that Camelin was a wee town near Falkirk. But where was Falkirk? In 1952, the captain of Glasgow Rangers in Scotland was George Young, better known as Big Geordie. At the same time, the American crooner Nat King Cole was top of the hit parade with a song titled "They Tried to Tell Us We're Too Young." Some wit in Kilbirnie adapted the words of that song, and it became a sort of cup final anthem. Unfortunately for you gentlemen, I'm going to sing it. Now, if any of you want to join in, the key is C. They tried to sell us Geordie Young. They tried to sell us Geordie Young. But we don't want their trash, 'cause we've got Wally Ash, so they can stick Big Geordie up their lung. Staying on the musical theme, Kilbirnie Ladeside had a band. They were led by that Kilbirnie musical maestro, Francie McVarry, better known as the Stoogie. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines a band as a group of musicians. To call Stooges group musicians would be stretching the definition to its limit. They were a motley collection of mouthy players, bugle blowers, drum bangers, and they were led by a piper with a burst bag. Musical they were certainly not, but they were highly entertaining. They led the faithful into Hampden that day, no let the piper of Hamlin to their destruction, but rather on to glory. It's hard to describe the atmosphere that prevailed in Kilbirnie in the days leading up to the cup final. I don't have the words to convey the anticipation and excitement that was generated throughout the tune by Ladeside's forthcoming appearance in the Scottish Cup final. The outcome of the cup final was the sole topic of conversations in the workplace, in public houses, in co-queues, in street corners, and even in school playgrounds. Folk who previously had shown little interest in football matters were caught up in the expectation that swept through the tune. Grannies were knitting scarves and rosettes and tammies, while joiners were making ricketies. If you've ever stood next to somebody at the flipper with a rickety, you wish the joiners hadn't bothered. Shops and businesses along the main street were decorated and festooned with the black and amber of Kilbirnie Ladeside, and every available bus within a 10-mile radius was booked to take the faithful to Hampden. Despite the optimism that was sweeping through the tune, these were nervous and concerning times for the Ladeside players and committee. From the date of the semi-final, the 23rd of April, to the date of the final, 17th May, was a period of 24 days, during which Kilbirnie Ladeside had to fulfil 6 fixtures, 2 line matches and 4 cup ties. And teams knew they complained about fatigue. There was always a threat of injuries and suspensions, but fortunately the players come through hale and hearty. Now, one of the most important men in the Ladeside set-up at those days was their trainer, Jimmy Walden. The Jimmy was the old school. Her standard equipment was a towel, a pail and a cold sponge. Irrespective of the type of injury the player had suffered, the cold sponge was shoved down the front of his shorts. And it's amazing the effect that had. Most players got up to their feet immediately. One particular Saturday, Ladeside fielded a trialist at centre forward. He was a prolific goal scorer at amateur level. He was a local boy and not only a good footballer, but a very clever boy. He was studying for a degree in mathematics at Glasgow University. However, he had a terrible game, missing several chances. After the game, as he was leaving the field, he met Jimmy Walden, who said to him, "Son, do you ken what's wrong with you?" He says, "Your brains are on your heat." Now, I had a problem. How was I going to get to the final? I knew my father, who had been a Garnet Vale supporter before they became defunct, and considered Ladeside to be the enemy, would not be going. People today can't imagine the bitter rivalry that existed between Glengarnock and Kilbirnie in these days. Fortunately, my mother had 5 brothers, all of whom were Ladeside supporters, and one of them volunteered to take me to the game. This was my first visit to Hampden Park, and I can remember being awestruck by the size of the place and the crowd. I was excited and apprehensive at the same time. Excited about the game and apprehensive at the thought that I might get lost. It was quite easy to get lost, because there were crowds spread out all over the place, and I kept waiting to appear from Uncle. Anyway, when the teams came onto the field, they were so far away, they looked like midgets. I was used to be in the Vale field where the players were up close and personal. You could see the beads of sweat in their forehead, and you could smell the wintergreen, and you could hear them swearing. No Ladeside players, the opposition players were guilty of it. Being so young at the time, my recollections of that day are somewhat clouded. At times I was more interested with antics of both sets of supporters, rather than what was going on in the field of play. Anyway, I missed a lot again because I was too wee to see over the rest of the spectators. I do, however, recall quite clearly Willie Ash scoring the winning goal for Ladeside. The Ladeside supporters went mad with delight, and I was feared I'd be trampled to death. After the game, it was back to Kilbirnie to see the team returning with the cup. The streets were jam-packed with folk, men, women and children, all in a state of euphoria, all eager to be part of the celebration. The week following the final, the Scottish Junior Cup was put in show in the cooperative April Windy. I was at school with boys who couldn't recite their 9-time table, but who had absolutely no bother rhyming off the Ladeside Cup winning team. McQueen, Ross, Ryan, Brown, Pearson, Fox, Clark, Ashton, Barr, Brown and Macintosh, and I still carried him a 9 times table. Nowadays, gentlemen, we have World Cup finals, European Championship finals, Champion League finals, English and Scottish Cup finals, with all their glitz and glamour. But in my opinion, none of them can connect with the public the way the Scottish Junior Cup does. The atmosphere at a junior final generates, the atmosphere at a Junior Cup final generates is unequalled. It revitalises and re-energises communicants, and it puts them back on the map. Without the Junior Cup, who would have heard of Auchinleck? It would just have been another forgotten mining tune. I'm sure that throughout Scotland there are many people like me who witnessed their team for their tune or village bringing home the Scottish Junior Cup, leaving them with an unforgettable memory. Many of you here today, gentlemen, devote a lot of your time and energy to ensure the continuation of the Scottish junior game. Gentlemen, long may you succeed. Thank you.